It's Monday, December 23rd, and this is a special meeting of the Board of Education. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mackenzie Boucher. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mackenzie Boucher. Roll call, please.
Ms. Christine Bello,
Here.
Ms. Thomasina Bello, Ms. Mackenzie Boucher,
Here.
Ms. Victoria Boucher,
Here.
Mr. Bugarelli,
Here.
Mr. DeRay,
Present.
Mr. Howard, Ms. Politi,
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
Okay. Resolution 1.3, a resolution to approve the district clerk pro tem.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher,
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher,
Yes.
Mr. Bugarelli,
Yes.
Mr. DeRay,
Yes.
Mr. Howard, Ms. Politi,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello.
Yes. Resolution 2.1, a resolution to authorize a request for proposal to conduct a forensic audit. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Who's my second?
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion? Mr. Bugarelli?
Thank you. I guess this is more directed towards the members of the Finance Committee. You guys sat in for the presentation, I imagine, from the auditor. Were there any items that came up that would lead you to believe that this forensic audit is necessary?
Mr. Stewart?
Fred Stewart with the Audit and Finance Committee. We just had an executive session to go over the audit. There are some findings of concerns. They are going to add a supplementary to adjust some things in the Audit and Finance report here. There are some, what I would call concerns that because of executive session, we cannot speak about it, but yes, there are some concerns.
Concerns would rise to the level of paying money for a forensic audit? And would it be targeted, or this is general?
Targeted.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Stewart, when you say targeted, would that be because there were malfeasance found at the lower four levels that we talked about? I know we just had the audit, but we also have an internal internal claims, external claims committee, and now this from the controllers. Did any malfeasance come out of any of those four levels?
I would say I have found no malfeasance.
Okay.
I have found red flags
Okay.
that are concerned. The Board of Education is ultimately responsible for the finances of the district. One of my concerns is that we have not been able to get any reports, like the Treasury report, since July. A lot of that has to do with staffing. So one of my recommendations at the not the internal audit, yes, it was the internal audit, was that we don't have enough backup for staffing. I found 5 areas of concern to me. Number one, Andy is going to be leaving here in a couple years. We don't have a backup. Very, very vital position for the school district. Our food service director, when she took over the spot, the previous food service director left and left her in a mess. There was no backup. The payroll department, that was in one of the letters, that we received, that finding there was no backup for payroll. Treasury, we just went through another treasurer. That's why we have not been getting our treasury reports. And the other one was Ms. Roaring in finance. We got evidence when she went out over the summer, there was no backup for her, so we got no reports. So it's mandatory that we get the reports because we are ultimate responsibility for the finance of the district.
Follow-up, Madam President?
Yes, what I would like to say is the board is the highest authority with regard to the financial oversight of the district. In other words, the buck stops with the board. If anything goes awry with the finances, the board is ultimately responsible. And if at some point we have to answer to a higher authority, it won't suffice to say, well, we didn't know about it, or we didn't get that report, or we couldn't get that answer, because it's our job to get those answers. It's our job to ferret out the truth. So I've had concerns over the 5 months that I have been on the board, or 6 months, and as a matter of fact, it went as far as to try and put a policy in place to make sure that we had the check registers on a monthly basis. And I was ridiculed for it, like trying to micromanage or something, and yet we're entitled to have these things. We need these reports to provide the oversight that we were elected to provide. So it's our job to know these things. It's our job to seek the answers, and we're going to get the answers. So we can provide the oversight that we were elected to provide, and we can give the people the transparency that they deserve. Ms. Paletti?
Madam President, do you have any idea how much a forensic audit would cost the district?
That's what the RFP will determine.
Mr. Shaw, do you have any comparable numbers of what a forensic audit would cost this district?
That's going to depend upon the scope. So whatever is to be audited should be clearly identified to enable the responders to give you costs per area.
Right, and one more thing. So, Mr. Stewart, I hear you that there, from what it sounds like you came to a consensus of after meeting with the auditor is that there's some systems and some positions that need to be put in place. Would a forensic audit, with all of its costs, because we know it's going to be costly, would that be a solution to putting systems in place or putting people in there, or would it be a waste of money?
Mr. Howard?
Thank you for the follow-up, Madam President, when you said okay, and then you took the microphone. But my follow-up to Mr. Stewart, I want to commend you for the job you're doing and for the recommendations that you've made. And you had said that it was going to be a targeted forensic audit. So what area are we targeting that no malfeasance were found? I think that the questions and things that you are asking to be put into place is going to help us going forward, and it's going to remedy a lot of the things, the issues that you found. So I'm back to the original question to the board. If you've been able to identify those areas of concern, which I like I said, I commend you on, what is the need for a forensic audit that can cost this district a great amount of money? Please, Madam President, I understand whoever wrote that for you, but I'm asking you, how do we do that?
How do you know if everything is, we're not getting information. You may be getting information. We're not.
I'm
Mr.
not getting
Stewart?
any more information you're getting. I think that what Mr. Stewart has done is incredibly important, and I think that his recommendations should be complied with, but not a forensic audit.
So I take my job very seriously. I take everything very seriously, and I love numbers. That's why I requested the check register, and it was delayed getting it to us. I just want to let you guys know, I did all of 22-23 manually at my house. It took me a long time. I think I finished it 2 weeks ago. I did every check register, I did every budget transfer, everything balanced out, and I got all the checks up to, I think it was March, when the check register stopped, and that was because the new treasurer came in. At that point, I found no malfeasance. What bothers me is that we do not have all the numbers since July. So we are under, what's the word I'm looking for? We're got a possibility that we're going to be responsible if there are any malfeasance. And my thing is trust but verify. I trust everybody. I just like to verify the numbers. And even though we're going for an RFP, does not mean that we're going to be doing the forensic audit. I would like to get all the numbers in place. I spoke with Ms. Roaring, and they're going to try to get the numbers, and I'll work with the Audit and Finance Committee to verify the numbers and make sure they're all correct, and then I can report to the board doing so. I can't tell you right now there's no malfeasance or anything going on. I don't think there is, but we have no numbers to look at since July.
How long does this process take, David? Mr. Shaw? The RFP process?
Getting a response once the RFP is drafted, probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you'll have a response.
Thank you.
Mr. Buccarelli.
Thank you. So, Mr. Stewart, you identified several areas, 5 areas of concern, I think you said, where they all had to do with staffing, backup. And that was actually some of the reasons why you didn't get some of the information that you're looking for, because some of these people were not in place. So I'm failing to see how a forensic audit is highlighting some sort of malfeasance that we have to look further when it's staffing that we need to do. How is a forensic audit going to address a future retirement for someone? I don't understand. You're not seeing the monies. You're not seeing the problems. You went check by check, you said. You checked out a few years. You didn't see anything. Why do we still feel we need a forensic audit when I'm sure the stuff you're asking for since July is coming because you already spoke to the superintendent of finance? So I just don't understand how a forensic audit for information you don't have yet that is incoming is going to help what you already solved the problem. We need to make sure people are in place to back these positions up. Thank you.
Mr. Stewart.
The only reason I think we need it is based on the stuff or the information I received on the new independent auditor's report. There's some stuff in there that is troubling and questioning. We need to get the questions answered. Again, the RFP does not mean that we're going to have a forensic audit, but the school board being responsible for the finances of the district, if anything is found, we can go forward. If not, we can vote it down. And if I don't find anything, I would definitely vote it down.
Mr. Buccarelli. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Dre.
So for the audit, the forensic audit, are you suggesting we just forensically audit from July 24 forward?
I personally did all 22-23. I would say from 23 forward. 22-23, I have absolutely no problem. I looked at everything. I mean, I looked at everything. And I have absolutely no problem with anything.
With that said, we have the same leadership in place for the entire period up to now. And those leaders produced what you just said is very, very good results. If I was looking at that and the leaders are still present, I wouldn't vote for a forensic audit, because if somebody was doing something wrong, they'd probably leave the district and we would have a problem. But instead, the same leadership is here trying to fix the problem. I would strongly suggest that if we have the type of money we need for a forensic audit to spare, that we put that into a search to fill these positions. to fill the treasurer position, to cast a wider net, looking for the right people, compensating them correctly, making sure the systems are in place, and then take a look at it. We keep on saying forensic audit like it's the holy grail. It's going to find us something. And we don't even know where to look. And we don't even know what we're looking for. What are we issuing an RFP for? To go look at a system. What are we looking for? We have no evidence of malfeasance. We have good leadership. And I know you could say, well, we just want to put the RFP out there because. I don't see the need for it. I will vote no for it.
Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam President. So maybe, Mr. Shaw, you can help me out. When we say forensic audit, what are the parameters of a forensic audit, number one? And number two, what does the wording look like when you seek out a RFP? What are we looking for?
Typically with forensic audits, there are targets. You do a targeted forensic audit each year as a requirement of being a district with more than 1,500 students. It might be live payroll 1 year. It might be auditing the claims auditor. It might even be a special ed audit, or it might be in the personnel office. So here, right now, it appears the capital projects and the energy performance are targets. So, that would be an example. If that is one of a number of targets in pushing out the RFP, you really ought to have the targets identified. Otherwise, you may get a response that's so just broad, and then the amount of money you're going to have to try to figure out if they give you a dollar amount or an hourly amount for various people in the firm. And then you're going to have to figure out what it is that you want.
So
Mr. Howard.
That's my question. So the resolution reads, a resolution to authorize a request for proposal to conduct a forensic audit. It has to be more in-depth than that, number one. Number two, before we vote on it, shouldn't we understand and know what we're voting on, what we're requesting?
Well, you certainly know that you're requesting the capital projects and the energy performance contract. And then beyond that, there should be some degree of definition. So I don't know who's preparing the RFP, but it ought to be prepared with more definition.
So, Mr. Stewart, you said that it's going to be targeted. Can you give us the breadth of the target?
Right now, it says the capital projects and the energy performance. The only other one I think might be a target would be the special aid.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Ms. Peterson.
Just so the board is also aware, the Audit and Finance Committee has to pick its target. I know Mr. Shaw referenced the fact that the board already pays for a targeted forensic audit. It's called the internal audit. So we still have to, in January, pick a focus for that.
Mr. Puccarelli.
Thank you. So going back to that, there's stuff that, Mr. Stewart, back to you, Mr. Stewart. You read stuff that gave you some concern. Was the district unwilling or unable to answer those questions, or was the auditor unwilling or unable to answer those questions? That would dictate us needing a forensic audit, given that we already do one targeted one for an area already. And you said special ed or special aid? How does is special aid directly addressing these staffing issues that you see a problem with? Thank you.
In the Audit and Finance Committee, everybody was very cooperative. All my questions were answered to my satisfaction. The special aid I have concern about is in the draft, if you'll read on, let me see what page it is for you. Page 70.
Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam President. For clarity, Ms. Peterson, the internal audit that's supposed to be done in January, what will that include, and did the members who are requesting the RFP, do they know what that will entail? Because that may cover some of the areas that they're requesting.
So the Audit and Finance Committee met on Thursday with the internal auditors, and they reviewed the process to which it's conducted. We went over areas from last year, areas in which there was some corrective action that the district was working on, and we talked a little bit about the areas in which the board can move forward. So there's certain areas within the internal claim audit that are general, like payroll, like different areas that the board can pick. The question was asked at that time, if there was a specific thing that was not on the list, could the board employ the internal auditor to do that? And it was, the answer to that question was yes.
Okay, so there goes my problem. If that can be done, why are we going to RFP for a forensic audit when those questions could be answered with the internal audit in January? I'm confused.
A forensic audit is a much deeper dive into the finances. It's not a broad overview.
Why would we do a deeper dive into something that we can have looked at on the internal level? And if they come back and they find something, then we go forward with a forensic audit.
Point of order. Can we call the question?
Roll call.
Point of order, you need a supermajority for that.
Roll call. Ms. Thomasina Bello.
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher.
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher.
Yes.
Mr. Bugarelli.
No.
Mr. DeRay.
No.
Mr. Howard. Ms. Politi.
No.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Supermajority would be more than 5 votes. And this was on calling the question. It isn't about voting on the resolution. So at some time tonight, you'll probably be voting on the resolution.
Question has been defeated, correct?
According to Robert's rules, it is.
Madam President?
Mr. Bugarelli?
Thank you. So in reviewing page 70 for special aid fund balance, it says a concern. What? What does that mean? Don't say the number. I didn't. I know the rules, trust me. So it says there's a concern, and then when you read deeper into the paperwork, it talks about finance agreeing with the recommendations by the auditor. Once again, what is it about this? There's a problem, we agree upon the solution, what is there deeper to look? And if you can correct me, Ms. Peterson, the internal audits we do, are they just surface level looks or they are deep dives into each area? Thank you.
So from the internal audit, they're definitely on resolution 3.2, you will see the internal audit risk assessment. They send different surveys, they question, they look at our processes and procedure. We have to follow up with different documentation to those auditors to review those certain areas. And based on that, they make a recommendation for whether a deeper look is needed. So it's like a general look at first, processes, procedures, policies, backup documentation, then they make the recommendation, which has not happened yet this year. So the Audit and Finance Committee, and they recommend these areas, it doesn't have to be these areas, to to look at and for the board to choose. We don't choose the internal audit, the board chooses.
Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam President. My question to the Audit and Finance Chair. Those areas of concern, did you present those to be looked into by the internal auditor for the upcoming audit that's going to be done in January? Did you make recommendations for those areas?
No, we have not made recommendations yet for the internal auditor.
Okay, but will you make recommendations of what you're requiring or requesting, or what we were going to RFP for? Would you make that request to the internal auditors first?
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Roll call.
So this is roll call on 2.1, correct, Mr. Shaw?
There's nothing further to discuss, yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bugarelli?
No.
Mr. Duray?
No.
Mr. Howard?
No.
Ms. Politi?
No.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
That motion passed.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of Finance.
There is items 3.1 to 3.4 on consent agenda.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Would anyone like to separate any out? No? No? Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bugarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina? Bello?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Item 4, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Secondary.
There's items 4.1 on consent.
Can I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Bugarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart? Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bugarelli?
Yes.